think, Mr. Zimmer, it's incredibly arrogant for you to say that it's not going to affect a grant proposal when the superintendent said it will. And he said that the timing, the turnaround for most of the competitive grants that we get, and I'm looking at the list from last year right now, and about half of the grants were formula grants and half were competitive. And he said it's going to affect the turnaround of competitive grants.
I'm sorry.
You can disagree with him?
I'm sorry. I too spent 15 years writing grants for school programs. Literally to the grant, it was a 6 to 9 month timeline. I'm not disagreeing that there are certain things that come up that are very quick turnarounds. I don't disagree that there are certain things that come up that are very quick turnarounds. That's why I'm asking the superintendent that as someone who supports this, I'm asking the superintendent to come back with guidelines that we can look at to make sure that that doesn't happen. That is what, and forgive me, I don't think it's arrogance. I think it's experience. Those were the timelines. These are long timelines, and we can disagree about whether the board should weigh in or the board shouldn't weigh in. But and if the superintendent comes back with guidelines that give guardrails against that, I trust him to do it. And I absolutely believe that it is possible. And again, I don't think it's, you can say whatever you want. It's not hubris. It's been my experience that we should be able to do this and have guidelines to make sure that the board can review policy and money will not be lost.
Okay, I'm going to finish my sentence now. What I was saying is we don't have dedicated grant staff. We have staff on a school campus who are responsible for 35 other things who in their spare time are writing a grant. And you know what? I don't really think in many cases they have the luxury of coming back to the board 1, 2, 3, 4 times on guidance. The same thing with the very overworked people, not just on the school campus, but in this building, who are trying to write grants literally in their spare time while they're trying to guide the academic growth of the students in this district. And to put upon them an additional requirement and say, oh, it doesn't really matter, I think is inaccurate when the superintendent is saying that he and his staff have looked at this. They know the kinds of grants they're applying for. They know the timelines of those grants, and they're saying it's going to affect them. And to just look at him and say, no, it won't, based on a grant that you wrote, 10 years ago. I've also written grants. Some have a short turnaround, some have a very large turnaround. It really won't matter. You're right. It's not that big of a deal if something has a 6-month turnaround. But the superintendent, and I assume he's not lying to us, has said for a lot of the competitive grants that we got last year, it has a very short turnaround, and he's worried about how that's going to impact the financial health of this district.